Hello and welcome to episode 3 of A Gamer Looks at 40, the Uncut Archives. I'm Bill. And now you may be asking yourself, hey, wait a minute, where is my regularly scheduled A Gamer Looks at 40 episode? Well, unfortunately, life, you know how they say in Jurassic Park, life finds a way? These days, life gets in the way when it comes to doing podcasts and doing editing and all that fun stuff. So basically what I wanted to do, and I've been wanting to do this for a while, is give all of my wonderful listeners on the main feed a sneak preview of what my patrons get every single week. If you become a patron of The Gamer Looks at 40, you get access to two monthly podcasts. The first one called Rolling Credits, basically where myself and somebody else talks about a game I recently beat. And then, of course, we generally will descend into non sequiturs, just like Tales from the Bargain Bin. And the second being the Uncut Archives. Over the course of this podcast, I have done nearly 100 interviews over the last 2+ years. And I thought, thanks to the advice of my good friend Seth from the All In podcast, why not just release these uncut? Now, most of this material has been in other episodes, but I think as whole interviews, they're pretty neat. And it's a good opportunity to just hear one person's perspective over the course of an hour and change interview. And since I'm right now in the midst of this season of one-on-one interviews, I thought, hey, let's release this episode 3 of the Uncut Archives, to the public feed, just so you can get a little taste of what it's like to be a patron and what you get for your patron dollar. And speaking of patrons, let's get those shout-outs out of the way, shall we? Starting off with Greg Seward of the Player One podcast and Generation 16 series of videos, Patrice Smollett, BT Goebbels, Julian of Nerds Without Pants, Dan of Retro Logic, Brian Payne, Seth Sergel of the All In podcast, Tim Knowles of The Elitist, the Let's Play Princess, Games with Coffee, and finally, the ever debonair Pete Hardy. If you want to join these wonderful titans of philanthropy, then check out A Gamer Looks at 40 on Patreon, check out a tier, and if you feel so inclined, sign up today. This interview is with the one and only Shaan Shirazi. I used to work with him about maybe 10 years ago or so, and he is a fascinating guy. He is the type of person that if he gets an idea to do something, he just does it. If he meets some rockabilly band at a bar or a gig and they say, hey, do you want to play with us for the next 4 months on an international tour? He goes and does it. He did that. That's a thing he did. Shaan, again, is a really interesting person and with a long history of playing video games back in the old days of retro gaming. On this episode, we talk about his experiences in video game competitions, how it was to be a young gamer in Hawaii, which is a really fun perspective, and a whole other bunch of just interesting tidbits and knowledge from a fascinating guy that I was lucky enough to have on the show. This was the third interview I did for the show. Hope you enjoy this edition of the Uncut Archives and enjoy the episode. All right, man. Well, again, thanks for taking some time to just kind of, I don't know, like roll down memory lane about gaming. Again, I know you've been playing music forever. But I didn't know you were a gamer of sorts. So take me a bit back. Go for it.
Well, like any kid, I mean, we were all arcade terrors when, in 80, I was 12 years old, right? And that's when they first came out. And that's like probably the target market for gaming at the era. I remember the first real video game I remember seeing was a stand-up Space Invaders at this convenience store. And, just immediately was enamored with it.
What about it really, really caught you?
Well, it was just different than anything you'd ever seen to that point. I think, and I had the original Pong, I remember, like that you had to hook up to your TV and play. And there was this Battle Zone tank game that I had originally on. These were like non-arcade games, but I always had some sort of video games. For whatever reason, I don't even remember asking for it, but they just appeared. And back then those were more like family things too. It wasn't just for the kids to play. Everyone was playing Pong. I mean, everybody wanted to play that.
Right.
But yeah, when you saw the first Space Invaders and like the artwork on the side and the lights on the top, and of course the game itself, it was just like something you'd never seen before, and it cost a quarter, which was not the most expensive thing back then, but still, it was like real money.
Yeah. Yeah, you just didn't hit start on it, right? You had to actually invest something into it.
Yeah, exactly. And you could get, I mean, if you didn't know how to play it, you were out a buck 25, which back then would have paid for some serious stuff in no time. And the funny thing about Space Invaders was the scoring was so low relative to like how other games came along. It's like if you scored 3,000 on Space Invaders, had a pretty good game.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. That is pretty sick. I've always been bad at those classic games like Space Invaders. I don't know why. I just am not good.
Well, it's because you don't know the pattern.
Is that what it is? The pattern is. That's what I understand. Like especially Donkey Kong and things like that. It's all about the pattern.
Well, there's not really a pattern with Space Invaders because they're just going left and right, left and right. But here's the deal. Here's one of the things why I wanted to bring up Hawaii and gaming in Hawaii as far as video games go. It was the craziest thing. So there was this place in Waikiki, right outside Waikiki. It was basically like a few floors above a really, really fancy department store. But it was called Mitsukoshi. And you go to Mitsukoshi, you walk past all the fragrance counters and jewelry, and you get the elevator, you go to like the fourth or fifth floor, I can't remember. And the doors open up, and it's like literally an entire office building floor of nothing but tabletop Space Invaders and asteroids. That's all they had back then. Wow. And everyone was filled with kids, mostly Asian kids because it's Hawaii, and just going nuts. I mean, that thing had to have been making, let's see, a quarter, 50 cents each one. I bet it was making $500 an hour then,
That's crazy.
And the funny thing about it is this is obviously so early that for whatever reason, information about how to succeed at these games and all these little tricks of the trade flew around as if the internet were around. I mean, I don't know how we all knew how to do certain things or how to get free credits here or how to beat this game. But there's like this wealth of knowledge that I can still recall some of it. So if you want to play Space Invaders, and by the way, I bought a centipede, a full-size centipede about 6 years ago down in San Antonio for $350. And it was in really bad shape, but I learned how to kind of fix it up. And it was a standalone centipede game for a while until it kind of cracked out. And then I made it into one of those 60-in-1 games. A friend of mine who actually repairs games. He's actually a heavy metal guitar player too, but he repairs games and stuff here in town. And he made it into one of those. And I took that up to Oklahoma for my sister. So now it's up there. So whenever I go visit for the holidays and whatever, I'm like, I'm setting high scores on Donkey Kong Jr. and Galaga, of course. Yeah. Like just whatever.
That's cool. That's interesting. But so I'm just trying to get the envision. So basically, like large office style, like almost like the size like of an office, and tabletops. So are they the ones where you kind of look down, like the top down, or were they the cabinets? No,
they were basically like a coffee table, with the glass top.
Like coffee table.
Yeah. So you sat on a chair and you looked it down. I mean, that's all. Because, I mean, it was just way more space efficient, right? You could just put, I don't know how many, but you could put way more games in that space for that. And every game was being used. You just had to wait around and hope someone stopped playing. And that was just one of the places in Hawaii. There was the Fun Factory. There was Tilt. There was any place where they had like a small strip mall type of space. You could open the door and there might be 14 games in there. And I guess come to find out that a lot of them were like fronts for money laundering that no one realized because we were just playing the games. Did you ever go to that? Did you ever go to that thread that I sent you about some of the nostalgia people talking about their experience also in Hawaii?
I read through a bit of it. Yeah, I didn't read through the whole thing, but I think I got through maybe a dozen or so posts. It was interesting.
Somewhere in there, people started talking about how, the kind of local gangster guy was using a lot of those for money laundering purposes. I mean, what a great money laundering thing, right? I mean, it's just all coins and cash. Who's going to count all that?
It's all cash. It's a cash business. That's so interesting. How funny. Huh. I would never thought of something as innocent as a bunch of kids running, joyfully playing games as a front for,
Exactly.
for money laundering.
No kid's going to be asking questions for sure. So it's like,
No, you have Space Invaders. What? Fine, give me the money, throw it in, and be done with it.
Okay, well here's the way that I learned how to get really high scores in Space Invaders. So there's like a grid, right? And it's about, I want to say, 6 alien rows by about 10, I think. Maybe it's 12.
Okay.
Well, anyway, what you do is you basically knock out the middle 2 columns. So you knock out the middle 2 columns, and you just let the invaders get to the very last row before you die, because on the very last row, you can actually go right underneath them and not get shot by the missiles they do. There's like a gap, and that gap is big enough. So you go right down to them, and then whatever direction they're going, you go that direction to the end, come back, hit them all, then go back to the other end, hit them all, and then go back to the middle and wait for that to happen. You just repeat, repeat, repeat. And as there's less invaders, they move a little bit faster, right? So when you get to the final row, it takes a little practice, a little timing, but then you go to the direction they're in, hit all 4, and then you go hit the 1, 2, 3, and then you move as fast as you can because it's going really fast, and you hit at the very end. And if I could show you this, in person, it'd make more sense to you.
Right.
But if you get that down, you can basically beat any level. You can go forever.
Wow, that's so interesting.
We had a name for
really
it. I think it was called Cowboy, but I'm not positive if that was the name for it.
That's like a chess thing, like a chess strategy. Well, I'm going to employ the Shirazi,
exactly.
Shirazi defense.
If only there was a Donkey Kong's Gambit on Netflix, I could be in it. I was actually never that good at Donkey Kong. I was good at Donkey Kong Jr. I like that one a lot better.
Donkey Kong Jr. is an underrated game. It's super fun. It's got a lot more. It's got more verticality to it, obviously. So I actually really enjoy Donkey Kong Jr. Probably a little more than the original Donkey Kong, I think.
Okay, so let me give you some other knowledge. So of course, being kids in Hawaii, we also had things to do to get free games. One of the classics was drill a hole in a quarter with a string. I'm sure everyone tried to do this, and you could just put it down and pull it back up and get your game. Another thing you could do is you could flick pennies up the coin return slot. If you got good at it, you could flick the penny. It would hit the thing that activates the credit from the bottom, and the penny would come back down, and you could just get free credit after free credit, flicking pennies up the coin return slot.
Get out of here. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
And I don't know how we all knew that, but it just got to be very standard information. I mean, everyone knew.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I have to go to. I'm sure it won't work at pinballs anymore with even on their retro games that they don't have the card
you got to use your card now.
Yeah, well, some of them they still don't. They haven't retrofitted all of them, so who knows?
So here's one more secret. Here's one more secret I remember, and this is on the game Tempest.
Oh yeah.
So Tempest was pretty crazy, and I've only successfully done this once, but apparently, if it hasn't been reprogrammed or whatever, if you get to the score of exactly 99,990 and then die, and I've seen this happen, it'll give you 40 free games.
That's so funny. That's crazy.
I've never seen it mentioned on the internet. I mean, like Tempest 40 free games hack. I've never seen anyone post anything about that. So I'm not sure how we knew it, but I did it one time myself because it's really hard to get that exact score. Because at that point it's pretty fast and it's easy to go over because you have to hit those spikes. It's like 10 points at a time. So you're dodging everything and you're trying to get just 1 point, 10 more, and then when you die at 99,990, you get 40 free games.
That's funny, and that's those kind of things I find really interesting about this era, and even like the 8-bit era, like the late mid 80s NES era. It was all playground knowledge. Everybody somehow, like you said, somehow we knew this. Like we collected these things via osmosis, or you overheard some kid in one group. And I always wonder if that was really part of like a community almost,
Yeah.
At least I think. Yeah.
It was just kids, it was like kids gathered on their own, I mean, like no one ever had to tell me to meet them at the arcade or whatever. It was just, we just went and they were there,
It was just a gathering place, and that's interesting. And I always find, because arcade culture for me is really interesting too, because I think it's really evolved over the years. And I do kind of wish almost that I was into arcades probably more in the 90s, right? When I was old enough to get myself to places and that sort of thing. But yeah, just being a kid in an arcade, hanging out with a bunch of other kids playing games and absorbing all of this stuff is really, really fascinating.
So the two games that I was best at that I could claim to be like really good were Defender and Stargate. I really liked those. They were like probably for their era some of the more frenetic games that were out there. They weren't as slow moving. They had a lot of stuff going on. You had a lot of buttons, a lot of different things, and I was really good. Those are the two of the games where I could actually get a bit of a crowd watching me after a while.
Mm.
And another thing about at least Defender, when you're about to roll it from 990,000 to 1,000,000, which I've only done a couple times, but everything you hit, everything you kill, gives you a free man and a free smart bomb to prepare you for the next 1,000,000 or whatever you're going to do. So if you're smart and you hit all the low point things when you get to that point, you can build up 100 men and 100 smart bombs, and then you're really good. I mean, and when you get to that point, if you have to go home for dinner, you just give it to some kid who's there, and you're like, I gotta go. Enjoy level 79. I'm sure you'll be here for like 10 more minutes after this point.
Yeah, and good luck jumping into this at level 79, right? Like part of it's you have to scale with the challenge. Like, here, go ahead, kid. You're not starting on 1, you're starting on 79 with 40 free guys. That's really funny.
I never got that to know anything about that about Stargate, but I was always pretty good at Stargate too.
That's pretty cool. I'm not familiar with Stargate. Defender for sure, but not Stargate.
Basically, it's like the next generation of Defender.
Okay, there you go.
More Very crazy stuff. A couple more things you could do. I liked it a lot.
That's cool. Now you mentioned, I think, or either text or via Messenger, or whatever it was, that there was also like competitions and you might have competed and stuff.
I was in one competition that I can remember.
Okay.
And it was in conjunction when the original Tron movie came out.
Oh.
Because they had also an accompanying, Tron video game, probably in a Tron pinball machine as well. But I was pretty good at the Tron video game. And I remember going to an arcade. I had to sign up. And basically, you just played Tron. And I don't think there was many kids. I just remember it all being like what I thought were adults. They were probably teenagers. Right. Where I was 12, they were probably like 17, but they had just seemed like old guys to me. And I won that thing. I took it down.
Wow. Let's go. That's great.
But you know what's funny is, remember, you told me about that video game museum up in Dallas?
Yeah, up in in Frisco.
And I went there and I actually saw a badge from a Tron tournament labeled press.
Press.
As if they were going to have the media there covering this Tron tournament. Hi, they sent me down here from the Dallas Morning News. I'm here to cover the Tron tournament at Aladdin's Castle. Well, there was no press. No one interviewed me at the end of this contest. And all they gave me, I think I remember, was like, I don't remember the amount, but it was just a pouch full of tokens. That was my prize.
The kid who defeats everybody at the Tron video game got a pouch of the stuff he doesn't need because he's really freaking good at the Tron video game.
I actually took a picture of that Tron thing. I will send you. Actually, I think it's on my phone. I'll send you a picture of that Tron press credential.
I really want to see that. That sounds really funny. That sounds like one of those assignments that, everyone's sitting around the newsroom like, all right, we have anything for tomorrow night? Like anything for tonight? And someone's like, there's a Tron video game thing. Kids like games. And then there's the one beat reporter they send out. There you go. Guess where you're going today? To the Tron Festival. That's so funny.
I wonder if I could somehow find the date of when that was. Maybe there's some sort of Tron tournament, blog out there. And I'd love to see what else was going on newsworthy that week.
That would be great. I mean, imagine if it was like a heavy news week too. Like,
right. Oh, it was Iran Contra or something like that back then.
And this discarded press badge sitting there. The venue only had 4. They're like, can we get 4 people to come and cover this thing? I mean, we want to do it next year. Oh, that's funny, man. I've covered like video game conventions. Like they have one here in Austin, the Classic Game Fest, which is actually really fun. It's a really cool little convention. But
I've
man,
never heard of that.
yeah, it's Classic Game Fest. They do it at the Palmer Center every year. Not this year, of course, because nothing happened this year. But it's really sweet. They'll have 40 or so arcade machines, all free to play. Just walk up and play. They have vendors and classic game stuff and all that. So I covered the last time around. Conventions are fun, not for 2 days straight, because there is not that much going on.
Oh, go to a rockabilly weekend, or oh my god, that just gets ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. A lot of the same sort of rhythms and such.
Haircuts everywhere.
It gets cool in the cosplay competitions and all. That's always kind of fun. So you grew up in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I split time in Oklahoma too, just because my dad was living there, and both cities that we were in. Well, Honolulu had like the big arcades, but then Oklahoma had the ones like Aladdin's Castle, which was a chain. Or
Right.
Bally's. I think Bally's was another one. And of course, malls were big then, and there's always going to be a good one at the mall. You could always find games at a standalone Pizza Hut pretty well. That was always pretty good done. I actually always would play at this one 7-Eleven. My dad would drop me off at this 7-Eleven before school, and I would get in a few games of Stargate, or maybe one game of Stargate. So that was so good. I'm kidding. Before I went to 8th grade, because I did spend 8th grade in Oklahoma going to school. But yeah, he would just drop me off at this 7-Eleven, and I would go right there and play some Stargate. Matter of fact, I think there was a blurb or two people who wrote in my 8th grade yearbook about Stargate. I bet you that I might have to take a picture of that. I'll send that to you. It's hilarious.
That'd be cool. That's funny because wow, like you got known for being just a badass on Stargate.
Wait, hold on. Actually, my yearbooks are right here. Let me go see if they're around.
A few moments later.
Yep. Found
That's
it.
how. I mean, listen. If you'd asked me where my yearbook is, not gonna lie, it could be a dumpster. I really could not tell you. That's amazing.
All that stuff just in this one
Section,
drawer.
huh? That's great. That's cool. Memories at an arm's length.
I don't know where this would be. Well, we'll keep on talking, and I will see if I can find it.
That's fine. Cool. So growing up in Hawaii, so you said you're on Honolulu, kind of split time between Oklahoma and Honolulu. How do you think now, did you go to school primarily in Honolulu, or were you doing school in both too?
No, I went to school pretty much in Honolulu.
Okay. So and you said that the gaming culture was different in that, Honolulu had these huge kind of cavernous sort of arcades, and then, Oklahoma had the smaller ones. I'm not familiar with.
No, actually,
Aladdin's
in
Castle.
Oklahoma, because just based on sheer real estate, the arcades were bigger just because you could have these big old strip malls. In Hawaii, I mean, they seemed bigger, but I just think they were more like. Well, there's just two that were really big, like Tilt and the Fun Factory. I think the Fun Factory is still there. Those were kind of like, if you really wanted to have a day of playing games, like when all the games were out. At that point, when there was Donkey Kong and when there was Pac-Man and there was all those, right, they would all be there. But the small ones would just have, Space Invaders, Asteroids, maybe a Donkey Kong, just never had the variety. But yeah, I mean, so I'm going to tell you the story. There was this one kid in my school who was kind of rich by our kind of poor neighborhood standards because his parents owned the Korean TV station.
Oh wow!
So this guy was pretty rich and he was super cool. And I remember one time he's like, "Hey, meet me let's go to the Fun Factory." And we'll play some games. I'm like, okay. My allowance back then was $7 a week, which was, nothing to sneeze at in like 1980, 81 or 2 or
That's
whatever.
not bad. Yeah.
So anyway, we go to the thing. I guess we take the bus or whatever, and we get in there, and he produces 2 rolls of quarters, and he says, "Here you go. I'm treating." And I'm like. That guy might as well have been Elvis Presley at that point. I mean, this guy basically almost gave me half a month's salary. Imagine if someone gave you 2 weeks of your current salary and said, "Go have fun."
Wow. Yeah, that's like, and I love about, not to cut your story off, but I love about when if that story is, that must have felt like everything. Like, I almost, when like my dad would give me like $10, which would be like an amazing, if I went to the arcade, here's $5 or $10. That is like limitless possibilities in my hand.
Oh, I know.
Right? Like, how did you, I can't, yeah.
I
The
don't
kid was
think
Elvis.
I could even have spent it all just because I would probably just go to the games that I was really good at. But I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
games I wasn't good at.
Sure.
But yeah.
So
But I just remember that being this memory of this guy just being like the coolest guy, you know?
That's right. That's awesome. Cool. And I think, like you said, you probably just went to the games you loved and played them. That's interesting. I would like to think I'd be like, oh, let me try this game that I wouldn't try with my own money. No, just bang right to the Simpsons arcade game. And that's the end of it. Just keep
I mean,
knocking it
even
down.
in high school, me and my friends still played some games. Like I told you, I got out of it once I started playing guitar and doing other stuff. But the last game that we really got into as a group was Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Did you ever
good
play
game.
Gauntlet?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the last game where we really like tried to do well, but that was pretty much it at that point.
Yeah.
And even before that, I mean, it was just like, here and there for fun. But yeah, the actual like your main. Oh, and I forgot about the roller rink. God, the roller rink had the Fun Skate. Was the name of the place was Fun Skate. Had the best arcade. God, it was so much fun.
What made it special? Just the amount of stuff, or
It was just a perfect arcade, and you could go roller skating, and you were on your skates, so maybe you were a little bit taller than if you were on your shoes, so it kind of made it easier to play.
sure.
But yeah,
Sure.
no, I mean, just like, did you go to pinballs like right when it first opened?
Yeah, I've been to the original one, not the I've been obviously to the monoliths on Lakeline, and I never went up to one in the Great Kingdom or whatever they call it, but yeah, I've been to the old school one.
Well, the original one is great because it just feels like what an arcade used to be. Granted, it's mostly pinball machines, but I mean, it's got to have a certain kind of carpet. It's got to have a certain kind of lighting. It's got to have a certain kind of music playing in order for it to really feel like it did back then. And they did a really good job of making it that way, especially because it has that roller rink style, carpet with weird
Yep.
colors and neon and all that kind of stuff.
It's all trampled down from feet and soda and such. And what always catches me on that, because it also reminds me of like a classic Jersey arcade, like one of the old Jersey Boardwalk arcades. It's the ceiling height. They're low ceilings. So it's not.
No, they were pretty high because especially
Are
for
they?
a skating. I mean, like in a regular small place, I don't remember it being very low.
I don't know. For some reason, I remember just thinking that it felt right vertically. I don't know. Maybe that's just my mind playing tricks on me. But it did remind me of very much so of a Jersey boardwalk. There's a couple steps leading up to another level where different games would be. It just had that kind of feel of something well worn, which is cool. Arcades should be well worn things. They should be almost like little, not to get too dramatic, but like shrines where you have your newer stuff and your older stuff in the back, and then you have your skee ball on this side. It's just,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. The giant monolith fun center is fine for my kid. Like he runs around but I don't want the VR experience. I just want to shoot something with a light gun. Give me some Area 51. I'm a happy man. For the 10 minutes I'm playing it.
That actually reminds me. So you mentioned how you were more of a '90s arcade kid,
Yeah.
and that's kind of when I guess I had a certain idea about what a game should be like, and when the games ended up being walking down the street just kicking the crap out of people,
Right.
that's when I got turned off because I don't know, I kind of liked my games with a bit of a purpose or a quest or whatever. And yeah, when they came to be like that, I was just like, I'm just not getting into this. Street Fighter and Ninja Turtles and all that stuff. They were all kind of the same. It was like, okay, what characters can be in this game walking down the street, kicking the crap out of people? Let's make it the Super Friends or whatever. And I was just like, they're all the same. So that was definitely part of that, and just growing up, obviously, and growing out of the whole deal. But
Sure.
yeah, if they had stuck with some more games that were a little bit different, maybe I would have gone a little bit longer. Oh, that reminds me. Do you remember that game? Oh, I can't remember. It was the first Laserdisc game.
Yep. Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair.
Yeah.
I never got good at that.
Now, well, so in those days when it got to the 90s, the games quickly became, because in the 80s, and again, I like a lot of retro stuff. That's, a lot of what I kind of do in the gaming world. I know a lot of retro streamers and such. Obviously it's a big scene now, right? And those older games were about accumulating a score, about building a skill. And then after the big boom of the arcades in the 80s, once it kind of started dying down, once you hit like the early to mid 90s, the games were all about taking money from you.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't about you didn't have a chance. If you played the Simpsons game legitimately, you were spending more money right after the first boss or at the first boss. Like there's no way that the game's going to let you proceed. So that's kind of what's interesting. What you're saying, and all those fighting games were the same. They were all designed to steal money from you. They're not designed to be played well. They're just designed to be visually stimulating, kind of like candy. It doesn't last forever. It doesn't last long at all.
And I guess what they learned was kids like us and all the ones would just find a way to spend an hour on a quarter or two, and that's just not going to make a whole lot of money for everybody.
Right, and that's what it was, because the main equalizers were the fighting games, were your Street Fighters, your Mortal Kombats. I was never terribly good at those, but those are the ones where if you were good, you'd wait in line and you put your quarters on the arcade, and you'd wait your turn for someone to lose, and then you take your turn, and if you can get a few bouts in and win, you do well, and and that was where the skill was in the fighting games. But everything else, like the beat 'em ups, the side scrolling beat 'em ups, they're mostly bad. You're right, they're mostly pretty bad games because they're not interesting. Walking to the right and punching someone, but
right.
That was the style of the times. That and people's heads falling off. That was the style of the times. I'll tell you a quick story about a game. You were talking about how you had a friend who gave you that stack of quarters.
Right.
That holy grail of quarters. I was really into a game called Revolution X. Have you ever heard of this? Okay. So Revolution X is one of the light gun shooting games, like a Terminator 2 game. You have a gun, it's attached to the cabinet, and you're shooting things. It stars Aerosmith. It's the Aerosmith light gun game. And the idea is that this weird dominatrix lady is taking over the world and robbing us of music. And we need to rescue the members of Aerosmith so rock and roll can come back into the world. That's Revolution X.
How did I not know this game?
Oh, it's amazing. You need to look this up. It's Revolution X. And it's got it's got the band's face, images and faces and voices. Like they voiced it, and it's a whole thing. Steven Tyler throws you his keys and gives you this rad car. Anyway, so I'm playing Revolution X. And I'm pretty decent at it. And I'm playing. And I blew like $2 of my $5 that my dad had given me. And all of a sudden, this guy comes up. It's a 2-player game because there's 2 guns. This adult comes up. Now I'm a kid. I don't really care. I'm just playing the game. He plunks some quarters in. He starts playing. Cool. We're now two people taking on the challenge. I run out of money. I'm like, shoot, I'm out. I'm tapped. Like because now I'm at this point in the game where I've never been before. Like the most I spent on the game is $1. After that, forget it. So I'm playing. I run out of money. This guy just starts feeding me quarters. Because he is like, we're finishing this game.
He's staking you.
And he was staking me. And we finished the game. He was staking me. He runs out of quarters. He's like, all right, man, I gotta run to the cash machine. He runs to the cash machine. He's clicking down from 20 to 19, 18. I'm looking around. I'm getting wrecked. He's coming back. He's throwing more quarters in. He probably spent easy $15. Easy.
Wow.
But he was finishing that game with me, and we finished it. We killed the dominatrix and saved the world of rock, not single-handedly, dual-handedly.
Thank God for you.
So, yes,
I'd have no career if you didn't do that.
That's right, man. Imagine that. If exactly, the rock would be dead. So, yeah, man, arcades are cool places. They really are. And if I was smarter, I might have actually. Hopefully, my dad didn't see that because he probably who's this weird guy giving my son money to play? But he was probably off doing God knows what. So, man, it was cool. It was cool.
All right, I found one yearbook entry that I think will sum it up. Sums me up perfectly. I don't
All
remember who
right.
this girl was, but you ready?
I am ready.
Sean, you are a really sweet guy and great at video games. Geometry was so fun, ha ha. I guess you like rock groups? Have a great summer and good luck next year.
Listen, when I think Sean, I think video games, rock, and geometry. So that's she got you right there. And
I'm all about the geometry.
yeah, man, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, it's just interesting how arcades really, really were those kind of weird communal places, right? It's kind of also a place where kids could kind of run free, right? There was no real, like when I was, by mid 90s again, I'm like 12 or so. So my dad would drop my brother and I off, and then he would go do something for an hour and come back and pick us up. It was a place where we could be alone, right? I didn't live in the greatest of neighborhoods, so I didn't have the kind of childhood of, riding my bike to little Johnny's house and, that whole thing. It was pretty well supervised, but that was like the one place where you weren't. And it was really cool to just be amongst other kids with a shared interest.
Going back and forth between Hawaii and Oklahoma wasn't always the greatest for making friends, especially in Oklahoma. Like I had my friends in Hawaii, but so and I was never really I was always kind of a late bloomer athletically. So I wasn't very able to be popular very much. But at the arcade, you could at least be respected if you were good at that, that kind of stuff. It's like if I ever gained any modicum of notoriety, it was at the arcade when I was 12 or 13.
It was I think there's a lot to that. It was kind of like a proving ground for kids who didn't have any other place to really do that, right? Like I was never athletic. I played street hockey. I'm literally a New Jersey stereotype. I played street hockey. I'm literally New Jersey Shore, boardwalk, all that.
You put a dead body in a 55-gallon drum filled with muriatic acid.
hey, listen, what I do on the weekends is what I do on the weekends. All right. So but yeah, no, it's just because, I wasn't an athletic kid, right? But if you went to the arcade and I'm good at games, I can play video games. I can hang with other kids, in that arena. So, because not everyone was into sports. Not everyone was playing football and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's interesting. It was definitely a proving ground. It was a cultural place. It was a place to learn about games and such, and just be a kid. Like I said, in an unsupervised environment, which was at that time, for me at least, really, really freeing and cool.
And is part of your podcast going to obviously deal with consoles too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I basically only had the Atari 2600 and then the first PlayStation, and that's pretty much all I ever had. Now I had some, I should actually backtrack a little bit. I played the heck out of some PlayStation, not my own, but some friends in college. I don't know why, but I only wanted to play Zelda, but this is a whole other story, but whatever.
Well, you never got a chance to play Zelda, or
No, I did. I finished Zelda 1 and 2, and then I stopped playing any of those games anymore.
Okay. That was on the NES. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, all that hand-eye coordination, all that. Like I never thought of myself as an OCD guy, but sometimes I will not stop until I've got, as far as I can possibly go. Some of those games you can't finish. Well, the arcade games, you just have to go until you tire out or whatever. But yeah, right. I would actually, try to get really, really good at those for a while until. Wish I had the same, motivation in other aspects of my life. I'd probably go a lot farther. But
listen, man, that's just what it is. It's just there's only so much time and only so much energy. So it sounds like you kind of fell off once you started playing guitar. When did you start really getting serious with guitar?
So it was another year that I was in Oklahoma. It would have been 1983. I went to a Quiet Riot concert with Queensryche opening.
Oh my God.
No one ever heard of Queensryche back in 83. I never did. And so that would have been like in the early fall. And I had my first guitar by Christmas and really got into it more. I mean, I played and went to lessons, but my dad didn't buy me an amp. So I had an electric guitar with no amp, which is terrible. But then when I moved back to Hawaii, one, I got my first real job. And then two, I got my first real guitar. at a real guitar store where all the rock stars came. Whenever Warren DeMartini or anybody came over from California to play, they all hung out at Hot Licks Guitars. And so, yeah, so that like 84 is about when the time,
Nice.
Everything else took a backseat to that.
That's pretty cool. Do you think at all, and this may be just like a reaching question, but I'm just curious, do you think your time playing video games in the arcade helped translate it to any of your skills in guitars? There's a lot of hand-eye coordination and dexterity.
Possibly, although to be honest, to be a good musician, what you really need is a good ear and a good sense of rhythm.
Yeah.
Some of that, though, does translate. I mean, you need to be able to kind of hear some of the things, the little clues that the audio clues that games give you. And of course, there's also a rhythm to some of those movements and things like that. So that and the hand-eye coordination. I think those could all very much go hand in hand.
No pun intended.
Which is funny because I just was never good at Guitar Hero. I just people would try to play it. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. I was like, I can play this song upside down and backwards on the real guitar. You want to see?
Yep. Well, here's why. I know exactly why I'm bad at it. I think I played drums. I was playing since I was like 13 or so. So I tried to play like Rock Band once in a bar, and they had like the drum set up, and I tried to play like some basic song, and I failed. I lost, and I'm like, I know how to play lit. Like I know how to do this, but I realized I was trying to play the song. I wasn't playing the game.
Right.
And that difference is, as as a musician, playing the song requires feel. It's not dead on to a metronome, right? You're going to have feel and inflection, and it's going to be a little wavy, but you're going to be on time, and it's going to play the song. But where in the game, you got to play the game.
Yeah.
And the game's exact and precise. And that's why I played it once, and I never played it again, because I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not translating to this. And if I want to play a cover song, I'll just bust out the drum set and play a song. I don't need the approval of the robotic audience. It's fine.
Exactly.
That's the main reason for me. I had the exact same experience. I tried it and I'm like, this is weird. It's not music.
The only thing I like to do is sing, which is something I'm not very good at. And of course I try to sing like, Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or something, which is nowhere near in my wheelhouse. That was always fun. That whole Rockstar, and then those are huge games. I mean, everyone had that.
Huge, big deal. I never had a room for it, because by the time I would have been into that, was I in New York already? Or I was at least living in really small apartments, and I would not have had room for a full drum set. But Rock Band is huge. Yeah, Guitar Hero and Rock Band people still play them. And it's interesting how those games have completely fallen off the map. Like, nobody cares about them anymore.
Yeah. They're not going to stand the test.
They tried to bring it back, and hey, Rock Band 5, but no one cares.
Maybe it's because rock and roll is generally kind of having a hard time.
It might, I guess, right? I mean, there's so much classic stuff you would think that, there's so much great classic rock out there, even if you're not, no one's playing rocking along to Taylor Swift, obviously, but no offense to Taylor Swift, but I can't imagine Rock Band Taylor Swift.
It's funny you mentioned that, because
I don't know.
I've never met anybody who said, yeah, I really got into playing guitar from playing Rock Band. Because I think people were thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be a huge, influence, and people are going to take up guitar. I've never met anyone. I'm sure there probably are kids younger, because I don't hang around kids that young. That is, I'd like to meet somebody who, I just want to play Rock Band. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to play regular guitar. I've never heard that. But it's funny that you should mention Taylor Swift, because she's like single-handedly keeping the guitar industry, as far as guitar sales. She's the biggest guitar influence in the last 10 years. There's no Eddie Van Halen's. There's no anybody like that doing
really?
That. It's her. She's the one who's selling guitars for the guitar manufacturers, believe it or not.
Get out of here. Interesting. I know she's, she started as, guitar player and singer-songwriter type. Really, even these days, she's pushing that.
Maybe not now, but for the longest time, she was. People would come and say, I want to play guitar because Taylor Swift plays guitar. Whereas when I was a kid, it's like, I want to play guitar because Quiet Riot, has guitars, or whatever band you want to play.
Right, yeah, exactly. Thank you again for listening to this special edition of the Gamer Looks at 40, the Uncut Archives. If you dig this, once again, patreon.com. There's 2 more episodes of this and a bunch of rolling credits. And you get access to a special channel in Discord and my ever-loving friendship and thank yous. I genuinely appreciate all the support everyone's given me over the last couple of years. Thanks again for checking out the show, Twitter if you haven't done so already, and continue being awesome.